Okay, good afternoon, pilot teachers, and good afternoon, students. Okay, thank you. Sit down. Okay, we are going to continue on with the presentation of work on vegetation. If you can recall, we still have two more groups of vegetation for presentation, and the two groups that will do their presentation will be the group on deciduous forest as well as the tundra vegetation. If we do have time today, we should be able to look at both those different vegetation group, which is deciduous and tundra. But if we do not have time, then perhaps we might have time only for the presentation of the work on deciduous. Okay, so without further ado, I will now call upon the group that is working on deciduous vegetation to do their presentation.
Good morning, class. Today my group is going to do deciduous forest. Deciduous forest can sometimes be known as the middle latitude forests, which are found approximately between the latitudes of 25 to 50 degrees north and south of the equator. Deciduous forests can be found mainly in places such as the west of Europe, northeastern Asia, and parts of North America. In the southern hemisphere, deciduous forests can be found along the southern coast of Australia, New Zealand, and Chile, where the vegetation is a mixture of both deciduous trees and evergreen broadleaf forests. The vegetation here are mainly deciduous trees. Deciduous trees are trees that lose their leaves or shed all their leaves during one season, which is usually autumn, and remain bare all throughout winter till spring. The climate in this forest is sufficiently moist and warm to allow tree growth, especially in summer, whilst during winter, temperature is rather cold and frosty. Some plants that are commonly found in deciduous forests are oaks, chestnuts, maples, and basswoods. On the screen are a few examples. There are 3 different layers of a deciduous forest, and my friends will later explain.
Some of the characteristic for a deciduous trees are their leaves generally fall when conditions become cold and dark so that they don't lose water through the leaves through the process of transpiration. They are broad-leaved. Deciduous trees defoliate, meaning that I have this ochre leaves here, meaning that they change color from green to brown and then they fall. The adaptations for deciduous leaves are in the middle latitudes of the temperate zone, characterized by the deciduous broad-leaved forest belt. 6 phases of the seasonal cycles are recognized. In this region, aspect is most strongly evident, and the phases correlate climatic conditions with the outward appearance of the tree cover. In the early spring or prenuptial period, the heavy species and the lower story trees bud and bloom as air temperatures and day length increases. In the upper stories, bud break is delayed by the sap rises from the roots to the crown. In the late spring, soil temperatures rise with air temperatures and day length reaches its maximum value. As the leaves expand, shoot growth accelerates. The transpiration rate becomes more rapid as the leaves mature and as moisture in the soil becomes more readily available. At this period, the vegetation is most vulnerable to frost damage. The next 2 periods cover only summer and midsummer. When conditions for growth are optimal, air and soil temperatures reach the maximum and full storage structure of the forest is operative and the metabolic rate is at its highest. During this period, moisture availability becomes the critical or limiting factor to growth. High temperatures combined with extremely dry conditions may induce a lowering of the metabolism of the tree, characterized by the premature aging of leaves and a slowing down of plant activity. The autumn period is characterized by the falling air temperature, decreasing day length, and the advent of frost. These changes induce a gradual reduction of metabolic activity and defoliation of deciduous vegetation. Finally, the winter is characterized by low daily maximum temperatures, heavy frost, precipitation in the form of snow, and short day lengths. During this season, the trees enter a dominant stage in which metabolic activity is diminished to the minimum level necessary for survival. As you can see on the screen there, it's this side of it shows the spring. As you can see, some of the leaves are growing from the winter, and summer, the oak tree is green. It's healthy, and in autumn, the leaves go brown and they go go weak and they fall, ready to they get ready for winter. Thank you.
I'll be explaining more about the the activities that take place in the deciduous trees itself. The diagram here shows a section cut out through a trunk of a tree. Here you can see the phloem vessels of the tree, which carry the food, the starch and the food produced by the plant being stored, and the xylem vessels, which carry the one with the pink shading is the xylem vessels, which carry up minerals and salts from the roots of the tree. Now, an interesting thing about deciduous trees is that once during the seasons of spring and summer, the xylem and the phloem vessels of the tree, they are much more larger in size, which can be able to absorb more nutrients from the soil and do more metabolic activity in the tree. But as it gets towards towards autumn and winter, there's a special acid produced by the tree. It's called abscisic acid. The abscisic acid causes the phloem and the xylem vessels to reduce their size, therefore reducing the metabolic activity which takes place. It slows down the growth, and in that it stops the processes within the plant for its growth and feeding, so that the tree remains dormant or goes asleep during the winter period. And when it starts for spring again, the abscisic acid again causes the phloem and the xylem vessels to enlarge again, so they could start their metabolism activity during the warmer parts of the year. That's about it. I also gonna be doing a specific species, which is called the oak tree. I'm doing my example on the oak tree for a particular species that grows in this type of forest. The oak tree is a deciduous tree. There's over 300 species, types of oak trees, and they are classified under these three main groups here: live oak, white oak, and red oak. They can be easily distinguished by the way the leaves, the shape of the leaves. In the live oak, we can see it's more of a rounded, smooth shape. For the white oak, we see that the leaves are more edgy type, smoothen out edges type of leaf, and the red oak is more rigid and sharp and like that. And one of the fruits or the seed that it produces is called a acorn. Over here, that's the acorn produced by all the oak trees. And the oak tree itself has some of its adaptations and characteristics as well. It's the outer layer of the tree. It's quite hardy, which will withstand harsh winter conditions. And the leaves are quite broad, which allows it to do more metabolic activity during the summer and spring months of the year, which allows it to store a lot of nutrients and stuff over the winter period. And the seed, the fruit itself, the acorn, the outer shell is quite hardy, which will after when it's during autumn when the acorn drops, it's able to withstand the winter conditions. It's a hard shell, and after winter comes spring, it can be able to germinate and grow up into another oak tree. Any questions? Oh, sorry, wait.
I'll be explaining the pictures to you guys. No, okay. That's an example of deciduous forest during autumn. Click it on. As autumn approaches, the days are shorter and colder. The trees can no longer obtain enough water from the soil. The leaves die and turn yellow, orange, or brown. That's why the leaves have colors. And when the leaves fall, they form food for fungi and small animals in the soil. That's an example of the three layers found in deciduous forests. The first layer is made up of the canopy, which is about 10 to 30 meters high. And then there's the understory, consisting of shrubs and herbs. And lastly, the forest floor, which is a habitat for many different animals. Go on. That's an example of deciduous forest in Denmark during summer. Those are spring belts during spring. This is when temperatures start to rise. That's all. Any questions?
Questions from the class? Any questions? Okay, there's a question there. Anita has a question. Oh, sorry, Silo. Silo has a question.
When you talk about metabolic action, what do you refer to?
Metabolic action, it refers to the activity that takes place in the plant cells, within the cell activity within the plant. So like making food, like photosynthesis and respiration and stuff like that. Those activities take within the cells of the plant.
Catherine.
What type of root system does the deciduous trees have?
Uh, they have a lateral root system, meaning that the roots the roots they spread out to large areas so they can absorb much nutrients and stuff as they can during the warmer months to hibernate during the winter.
Any other questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, then we'll put our hand together for this group. Okay, thank you for the presentation on deciduous, and we'll move on now to the last group for their presentation, and the last group is going to present on the Tundra vegetation.
Good morning, class. I'm sorry. Okay. My group's gonna do the Tundra vegetation, and I'll be doing the introduction. Tundra is one of the largest natural regions of the world. It extends across some of the most remote and inhospitable areas of the world. There's two types of tundra. One is the Alpine Tundra, and the other one is the Arctic Tundra. Alpine Tundra is located in the high altitudes, like on mountains, and it can be found in anywhere in the world, meaning the different regions, like the tropical and the tropical and the temperate regions. But for the Arctic, it's only found in the high altitudes, mainly. To explain on the Alpine Tundra, this diagram up here shows what it would look like. This is of a mountain that can be found in the temperate region. On the base of the mountain, you would have tropical evergreen forest. And as you go up, you would have mixed broadleaf forest. And then further up, you would have coniferous forest. And then you come to the Alpine Tundra. And on the peak of the mountain, you would have permanent snow. On the location, the monitor shows a map of where the tundra is located. It's mainly found in the areas in the northern Alaska, northern Canada, the coastal areas of Greenland, Iceland, and northern Eurasia. This map here shows the different types of vegetation in the world. The vegetation that we're gonna explain to you guys is tundra, and it's the light purple area right on the tip. This is a picture of the Arctic tundra areas. This is what it would look like in the summertime. This is another picture showing what it would look like during the winter time when there's less sunlight and permanent frost on the surface of the land. Okay, this is another photograph of what summer would look like when the ice melts, and that's when the plant starts to grow. Okay, this is an up-close view of the tundra area. This dotted area here represents the tundra vegetation, and the ones, This area represents the forest tundra transition. It's a mixture of forest, like the coniferous trees, including some of the tundra vegetation, and this area here, this shaded area with, which would represent the coniferous or the northern forest. Okay, this is another up-close view of the previous map, showing the permafrost line, which is this broken lines here, and this line with the these broken lines with small trees sample here is the tree line. So like north of the tree line, there's no trees, but south of the tree lines you would find the coniferous trees.
I will be talking to you about the characteristics and adaptation of the Thunder Vegetation. The Thunder Vegetation is one which is treeless. The landscape is distinguished by permafrost or permanently frozen subsoil. It occurs where winter and freezing exceeds the summer thaw. The layer varies in thickness up to a couple of meters. Influences of the tundra by the permafrost. Because water in the soil is frozen, it is not available for plant life, so drought-like conditions are created. This contributes to the character of the tundra. Also, the permafrost also creates some special features in the tundra as water freezes and expands and comes above the soil. On the monitor, I have a diagram which I'll be explaining to you. A cross-section of a permafrost. Over here, we have a North Pole and South Pole going southwards. This layer here is a layer of permafrost or permanently frozen soil. This layer here is the soil which during winter the topsoil melts, and this layer is when a topsoil melts. Sorry, and this we have our bedrock here. As you can see, as we go southwards, there's more amount of melted topsoil here. As when we come northwards, there's more amount of permafrost, large amount of permafrost in this area here. Low temperatures, strong winds, short and poor soils combine to make life very hard for plants. No month of the tundra is frost-free, so that only the hardiest plants grow here. Hardiest in a sense that these plants have special adaptational features which can enable them to survive in these harsh conditions. Because very little heat penetrates the ground, the earth is frozen a foot or two beneath this, as described earlier, is known as permafrost. This frozen subsoil stops the growth of tall trees, which require some depth for soil for roots to go through. This is why the tundra is a treeless region. Another reason would be because trees cannot grow under the temperature which is less than 10 degrees Celsius. The Thunder Vegetation is limited to those species which can live on the immature soils. In the seasons of summer, autumn, and spring, the vegetation forms a low continuous mat a few centimeters high, which is continually trimmed by the wind and animals. Wet areas tend to be covered by mosses, sedges, rushes, and willow shrubs, dotted by shallow lakes and crisscrossed by sluggish streams. These are the main characteristics can be found in the Thunder Vegetation. Dotted by shallow lakes, these places can be frozen for 7 or 8 months of the year. They are very dry and bare places and may support only a thin covering of lichens, so lichens can grow well in dry areas. The growing season is very short, about 2 months, and at this time the surface soil thaws, or in simple terms it melts. The subsoil remains frozen, Therefore, water lies on the surface. And when water lies on the surface, this influences the growth of vegetation, such as mosses. Extensive areas of the tundra support sedges. Sedges are grass-like plants which grow well in swampy ground. Tuft grasses and flowering plants. Some areas have low scrub, such as dwarf birches and willows. These are like small type of trees. Flowering plants wilt and die in the autumn when there are cold winds and few hours of sunlight. So there's not much of flowering plants are only in the season of summer. Winter, individual plants may not be able to escape the advancing ice by moving, but most species manage to survive. Their seeds are carried out of danger or back into new lands by wind, water, and animals. Mosses are flowering plants with stems and leaves. They do not produce seeds but reproduce by means of unicellular spores. Mosses are simple but successful land plants. They usually grow in dense tufts, which probably helps to support the moisture in the plants, because some parts of the tundra may be very dry. Thank you.
I'll be talking about the specific plant that is found in this tundra region. That is the lichens. Lichens are dual organisms that consist of two very primitive plants. That is the alga and the fungus. They live together in order to help each other survive. Lichens are classified on the basis of their fungal component. The fungi are either the sec fungi, the bracket fungi, or the fungi imperfecti. The algae are either green, blue-green, or yellow-green. Most lichens are composed of green algae and ascomycete fungi, that is the sec fungi. There are about 20,000 species of lichens. Some grow on soil, but most grow on rocks or tree bark. Lichens live in many regions in which few plants can survive. Some species live in the extreme cold of the Arctic. Others live in deserts or on mountains, even in the ocean. Okay, you can recognize a lichen looking at the thallus or the body of a lichen. As you can see on the monitor, this is there are 4 types of lichens: the foliose, the fruticose, and the squamulose and crustose. Okay, on the monitor is the foliose, which is the leaf-like structure, and okay, in the body or the thallus of the lichen consists of alga cells mixed amongst the thread-like hyphae of the fungus. There are no true leaves, stems, or roots. Okay, because lichens have no roots, they grow only when moistened by dew, which the fungus obtains and provides this for the alga. As I said, they both help each other to survive. The fungus also draws some food from the rock mineral. When this moist lichen absorbs sunlight, the alga part produces sugar by photosynthesis. And most of the sugar passes to the fungus, which uses it as a food, thus enabling the entire organism to grow. Dry lichens do not grow, but they can survive extreme temperatures that kill most lichens. Most lichens add about 3 millimeters a year, so they're very slow growing organisms. But a few species grow about 10 times faster. Many crustose lichens grow 0.3 millimeters yearly. I just go through the types of lichens. That is, as I said, the foliose is leaf-like structure. The fruticose, these lichens have an erect or pendulous bushy structure. The squamulose lichens that have a thallus, a body consisting of scale-like squamels. And the crustose lichens that produce a flat crust on a beneath rock or tree surface. Okay, there are several ways that lichens reproduce, but just three up here are by fragmentation. When spores are released, these are usually fungal spores that are released and they into the air, and they have to land where there's a suitable alga where it can combine together and a new lichen is gonna be is grown. And second is sodia. On the surface of the lichen, sodias consist. They're growing on the surface of the lichen. They consist of several alga cells surrounded by a web of fungal strands. They are dispersed by the wind or water. If a sodia falls into a crack of a rock or tree, it can start to grow there as a lichen. On this monitor here, this is an example showing the reproduction by the means of ECDR. This is a foliose lichen, and number one here represents the ECDR, the peg, the tiny peg-shaped, growing on the thallus of the lichen. This is the ECDR enlarged. This is the inner part of the ECDR. It is a fungal a hair-like strand, fungal strand, and inside is the sac-like acid, which is the fungus. Okay, inside the fungus are these fungal spores. These spores are released, and they have to find an alga to reproduce, and so a lichen can be formed. Okay, how they survive and adapt to the tundra, because it is very cold. Although there's little sunshine, but they don't have any roots, and so they don't depend much on the soil, or they don't get their food from through their roots. So they depend on each other, and they help each other to survive. And in this cold climate, there's a lot of this helps with the growth of these lichens. This is a crustose lichen. As you can see, it forms a hard, flat, colorful crust of growth over rocks and stones. This is a yellow map lichen. It ranks amongst the oldest living things. Scientists believe some of them are thousands of years old. And this is a significant lichen of the Arctic, the so-called reindeer moss, which is a pale green foliose lichen growing up to 15 centimeters tall. It formed extensive pastures on sandy or stony soils and becomes the main food for browsing Arctic animals such as the reindeer and the caribou.
Shown here on the monitor is an example of a Fruiticus lichen. Fruiticus lichens, as Anita had explained, are lichens that have an erect or pendulous bushy structure. Next is picture of snowgrass or cotton grass. These are some of the few plants which thrive in the tundra regions. This is cotton grass in Norway, the tundra region. Up next here is a picture of moss tundra plants in Sweden. This is shrub tundra in the northern Alaska. This one is an example of a foliose lichen. And the last one is of a reindeer feeding in northern Sweden. Reindeers are among the many animals that may be found in the tundra regions of the world. Any questions? No questions.
And if you do have questions, we're not going to ask those questions now because we have already run out of time. So maybe in our lesson tomorrow, we'll have time then for any questions that you'd like to ask with regards to the presentation on Tundra. Okay, we put our hands together then for the group who have presented. And thank you for the presentation on Tundra. This will also bring us to the end of our lesson. Class, if you could stand up now, please. To the pilot teachers, our keyword for lesson 137 is Tundra. Good afternoon and thank you, students.